So,
Yes.
hello everyone, I'm Momita from IndiaBioscience, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to today's informal webinar, and it's on the EMBO Global Investigator, that is the GENE, and the Young Investigator Program, that is YEEP. And we are delighted to have two wonderful speakers today joining in. First, we have Gerlind Wallon. She is the head of the Young Investigator Network and Global Activities at EMBO, and she will introduce the GIN, GENE, Investigator Network, and the Young Investigator Program to you. And we are also joined by Budhaditya Mukherjee from IIT-KGP. He is an EMBO Global Investigator, and he will also share his motivation for applying to the program and his experience navigating the application process as well. So after the presentation, we will move on to Q&A session. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat box or to raise your hand if you want to speak and ask the question. My colleague Srishta here, she will be closely monitoring the chat and she will direct the questions to the speakers. She will also invite you to speak if you raise your hand. And additionally, she has also compiled some of the questions that you have submitted during your registration, and we'll bring those in the discussion as well. So, but when you finish asking question, we kindly request you that you mute yourself after all your queries have been um, taken. And thank you all for taking time for joining us today. We truly appreciate your presence. And with that, I will hand it over to Gauri. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Momita. And first of all, also thank you very much to IndiaBioscience for hosting this webinar. And thank you all for joining. We also welcome scientists not only from India, but also from Japan, Singapore, and Taiwan in this webinar for information. And I'd like to also welcome Budhaditya Mukherjee, who has just joined the program this year from India and will tell you a little bit about his motivations. So let me start sharing my screen. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good, great. So let me start by telling you about EMBO because I'm not sure that you are very familiar with EMBO as it is an e-organization as in European. So the EMBO is the European Molecular Biology Organization, which has sort of three functions. It is an academy for the life sciences, and annually about 60 new members are being elected by the membership, nominated, elected by the peers, which recognizes research excellence. There are more than 2,100 leading life scientists in Europe worldwide, a number of them also in your countries, of those who are listening. And they guide the execution of the EMBO funding schemes. Among those, just to show the level of members, there are 92 Nobel laureates. EMBO is also a funder and receives its funds via the intergovernmental organization EMBC. So you can see here all our member states. There are 32 of them, just recently joined by Bulgaria. And it's these member states that then fund our programs, among them the Young Investigator Program and the Global Investigator, the Young Investigator Program. But of course, science is not only done locally on particular continents, but it's a worldwide endeavor. And starting in 2011, we have had several countries outside Europe join the EMBC as global partners or associate members. So we have Singapore, India, Taiwan, Chile, and Japan in the form of the JST, which is a large Japanese public funding agency. So this is why scientists from these countries are fully eligible to apply to any and all of EMBO's programs. Probably worldwide best known, EMBO is as a publisher of scientific journals, starting with the EMBO journal in 1982. And since then, we have a family of 5 journals. And as an academic publisher, EMBO is very much concerned with making the publication process a fair and a fair process. So one of the things that EMBO has pioneered, among very many other things, is the transparent publication process, which means that each paper that is published in our journals has all the communications with the author, of course, the reviewer reports and everything in there, just to, show why this particular paper was published in one of our journals. The latest effort in this direction is what we call Review Commons, which is a preprint peer review platform. So what does that mean? So one problem with the publication process today is, of course, that as an author, you send to journal A, maybe you get reviewed, comes back, it's negative, you need to go to journal B, etc. So it's a very time-consuming, can be a very time-consuming and nerve-wracking process. So the idea behind Review Commons is that you submit your manuscript to Review Commons before having decided which journal you actually want to send it to. So you send it to Review Commons, you get, like for any of our other journals, 3 reviews. And with these reviews in hand and your response, maybe additional experiments that you decided then to do, you can send these papers to any of the editors of these 29 academic publishers, and they will consider your manuscript with your responses, reviews, etc., for publication in their journal. And if they should not want to publish it, you can go to any of the other journals afterwards. So this has several advantages. Well, for you as the author, it has the advantage that you only go basically, you save a lot of time because you only go through one set of reviews and can then get your paper published. On the other hand, for you as a potential reviewer, it also means that less reviews will be asked of you during the publication process. So I think, and of course for you as an author, again, the advantage is that you are seeing, that you get a good idea of where your paper actually stands in the landscape. So maybe this is something that you would like to consider in the future when you want to publish manuscript. So now let me get to the heart of the matter. We're talking about applications to the EMBO Young Investigator Network. So what is the EMBO Young Investigator Network? Well, it connects some of the best young group leaders in Europe, Chile, India, Japan, Singapore, and Taiwan. And it consists of 3 parts. It's the EMBO Young Investigator Program, the EMBO Installation Grants, and the EMBO Global Investigators. Those scientists selected into these programs all are networked together, and all the activities that I'm going to talk about are available to them. So the aim is to support early career group leaders and provide networking opportunities. For the purpose of this talk, I will just stick with, I will not talk about the EMBO installation grants because they are a special program for a subset of our member states only. So let's start with the EMBO Young Investigators because that was the first program. It was launched in 2000 to highlight some of the best starting group leaders in Europe and beyond. And as I said, it's networking with the installation grantees and the global investigators. It's, as I said also earlier, the young applications for the Young Investigator Program are welcome from our EMBC member countries as well as our associate and global partners. Again, the benefits are the networking benefits, and I will detail those in a couple of minutes. And there's a monetary award of 15,000 euros, and the membership is for 4 years. So if you wanted to apply for the EMBO Young Investigator Program, what are the eligibility criteria? Well, you have to have run your independent lab between 1 and 4 years. You should have at least 1 last author paper published from work performed in your independent lab. And you should also have sufficient funding to run your lab, because as you've seen, we are not providing any additional research funding for you. The selection procedure is a pre-application by 1st of April this year, and we asked you to include 3 letters of reference. That is you tell us who your referees are, and we will contact them to get the letters of reference. Then the Young Investigator Committee will do a pre-selection. They will select 50 scientists who will be invited for interview. So just to give you some numbers, at the start we receive about 230 applications, 50 are invited for interview, and in the end about 25 will be selected. So once you've been invited for interview, you have about a 50% chance to get selected. So anyway, after the committee has determined whom they want to see for interview, we ask you to submit your full application by 15th of July. And following that, we in the office will also then solicit a review from an EMBO member expert in your area of research. Then there's a personal interview via Zoom in November. And then, as I said, 25 scientists are selected. Just to reiterate again, we have about 230 applications. The success rate is about 13%, and we accept approximately 25 young investigators per year. Now, the Global Investigators, that is a program that is solely restricted to scientists in our global partners, Chile, India, Japan, Singapore, and Taiwan. And it was launched in 2019 for our starting group leaders in our global partner countries. Again, the aim is to support scientists there and network them with the whole network in Europe and elsewhere. Again, networking benefits and membership is also for 4 years. So what are the eligibility criteria of the Global Investigator Network? Here you can have run your own lab between 1 to 6 years. So we realize that in some of our partner countries, it takes longer to publish the last author paper and establish your lab. And so we've expanded the criteria to 6 years. Again, we are, of course, insisting on the last author paper from your independent lab so that you can show that you can actually do and work from your own lab. Genau, and you must also have sufficient funding to run your lab, as also the Global Investigator program does not provide extra funding. So here the application deadline is 1st of May. Again, the 3 letters of reference. Please give us the email address of your referees. We will contact them, or the system that we've set up will contact them. The GIN committee does a pre-selection and invites 20 scientists for interview. And then again, there's a personal interview. And we will again solicit an EMBO member who's expert in your specific area to write a short summary and evaluation of you to help the committee a bit in the deliberations, because of course not every one of them would be an expert in your specific area. There's a personal interview at the end of November, and approximately 10 scientists are selected. So, you know, if we look at the statistics, on average we receive more than 60 applications. About 10 scientists are accepted, and the success rate for that program is 20%. So now let me tell you a bit about the community that has formed over the years within the Young Investigator Network. And as you can see, of course, a large part of our people resides in Europe, as it has started there. But you can see that all our associate countries are well represented here. Given that it's only since 2019 that we have the Global Investigator Network. And of course, some of our awardees have moved to the United States, as is visible in this map. Our scientists are very highly, as I said, they are very highly selected. The Young Investigator Net, as I said, also is now in existence for over 25 years. And I'm very happy to report that about 1/3 of them now has become EMBO member, sort of the next level up in this scientific career ladder, if you wish. So that is very nice to see. So the total community of YINs has now reached over 800 scientists, but the current, so these are former members who still are eligible to participate participate in the meeting. So there are a number of things that are still open for former members, and I find that's very important. I'll mention that where in particular later. And the current number of young program members is a little bit above 200, as you can see on the left side of the slide. So something that we are very much concerned with are our gender statistics, our fairness, equal opportunity for male and female applicants. And what you can see here, we look mostly at a window over 5 years. If you look at that, you can see that the success rate for males, I don't know whether you can see my cursor, for males and females are pretty much the same. This may not be the case in a particular year, but it is the case over a 5-year time frame. So that is something that we are very much also looking out for. So, with regard to the activities and benefits that you can gain when you become a member of the Young Investigator Network, let me summarize. So, we have, of course, at the heart, networking starts with meeting each other. So, we have the annual meeting, which takes place in different countries throughout Europe, usually, although we've also had it in Singapore a couple of years ago. And this is where all members of the network get to meet, give scientific presentation and network. Then a bespoke activity is the Young Investigators, the EMBO Young Scientists Forum that is normally only happening in the installation grant countries, so I will not talk about it. Then we have an annual PhD course, which was actually the first thing the Young Investigators in 2000 asked for. So it's a PhD course for their PhD students. And so we've done this now for the last 25 years and refined it to a really good course on skill building for the PhD students. And actually, we have started last year to also export this to India and Chile in 2025, so that now also this PhD course takes place in India, mostly taught by our Indian members. Right, and this year, actually, in a couple of weeks, the second iteration of that will take place in Bangalore in this case. We have a biannual retreat, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. It's a training week for young scientists. We have every 3 years a Global Investigator Network meeting. The first one took place in Singapore, and I think we're looking for the next one in India, hopefully in 27. And then there are what we call sectoral meetings. Sectoral meetings are meetings of young investigators, self-organized on specific topics of interest. So where 10 to 20 of young investigators get together, and that's where actually also the former program members come in and become very important, such that there is a critical mass in many in different subjects. So each year we run about 9 of these. You can see where they are distributed. I said I was going to talk a bit about the Yin retreat because that's an important part of things that we're doing. That is providing training for starting group leaders. So this year it takes place here in Berlin, in Germany, and we try to think of trainings, etc., that are really important for you as starting group leaders. So there is the advanced leadership course, which is basically a top up on the lab leadership course, which I'll be talking about in a few minutes. There is self leadership, which is basically a bit more inward looking about how you conduct yourself and how you can strengthen yourself. A new course is critical reasoning and logic. Of course, as scientists, we have to work with critical reasoning and logic, argumentation, etc. And there's quite a few things that we can still learn about this, to my surprise, but yes, that's what it is. Then successful interviewing. Of course, it is very important that the group leaders hire the right people for their lab. And there are a few tips and tricks how you can identify who might be the right people. And this is what is being taught in that course. Effective scientific presentation presentations. We have a young investigator who's now also an EMBO member who gives particularly good presentations and has excellent slide design capabilities, and he's happy to share them with participants. And then we have project portfolio management for life scientists. So this is being taught by a professional trainer who has actually had her own lab for 10 years. So she really knows what it means to be a group leader, to juggle the different grants that you have, the different projects, etc. And so she's going to teach that and then applying. Right. So this is something that you can look forward to as members of the program, happening every 2 years. Then other things that we're doing are, of course, the networking and support. So these are things that are available for you and your group members. So in order of popularity, there are the meeting participation grants. So we provide support for members of your group or yourself attending a scientific meeting somewhere, right? So you have 2,500 euros to spend per year on that activity. A couple of years ago, we started with childcare support. That is, if you have children, you need to go to a conference, and it's very difficult to find childcare. We will support you with 500 euros to either fly your relatives in, or take the child with you, or pay the extra childcare that you need for being able to go away. We support scientific visits. That is, if you go and visit a collaborator or the collaborator comes to you, we support that. We help your students and pay also for your students to go to collaborators' lab to carry out a particular experiment that is crucial for your collaboration. We help you when you organize financially, when you organize a scientific conference. We pay for joint group meetings with your collaborator groups. We help you. We cover a lab retreat so that you and your lab get together to just focus and discuss and team build in a 1 or 2 days format. We help you cover interviews of scientists whom you would like to employ, etc. So we have quite a number of things that we are supporting you with. So that's the network and support for you and your lab members. And then training and professional development. I told you already about the retreat. As a young investigator, as somebody who's been accepted to the program, you do have to take research integrity training. That's a 6-hour online course that you can take at your own pace. Then there is lab leadership training. So this lab leadership courses were developed specifically in 2005 by me, by the way, for academic group leaders. And since then, we have trained over 5,000 scientists. So as scientists, we're trained in writing papers, writing grants, giving talks. But what we are not trained in is how to deal with the group and our collaborator, our group members who we inadvertently need to have the lab run. So the lab leadership course is a 3-day or 4-day residential course that helps you understand leadership, helps you develop a leadership style and communication style that allows you to foster your group members into also independent scientists, and also helps you develop your team, helps you deal with conflict in your team, etc. So this is an extremely useful and essential course for group leaders. They mostly take place as residential courses in Europe. There are online versions, but in fact we will have 2 lab leadership courses in India this year from the 24th to the 26th of November at the IIT in Mandi, sorry, and at the TIFR in Mumbai. The dates are either end of the year or beginning of next year, so this still need to be confirmed. IndiaBioscience website will let you know once the registrations are open, so stay tuned if you are interested in attending this. So your cost for this will only be your travel and your accommodation at the institute where this takes place. The training costs are fully covered by EMBO. I would also like to announce another course that actually was inspired by India Biosciences and other colleagues in India, where they were asking for a course that helps starting group leaders to think about what it is that they need in their labs. And it's again this professional trainer who has actually gone through all of this, and she would teach and talk about with participants about particular topics. You know, how do I want my lab to be? Finding good mentors, bootstrapping your lab, making my first hire, growing and empowering my people, effective meetings, etc., etc. So all the things that one struggles with once you have responsibility, not only for yourself but others as well. So again, this will take place online from the 28th to the 30th of October, and it will be advertised at the India Bioscience website. And you're welcome to sign up for this and attend. I mean, of course, a number of participants is restricted, so there will be a selection. But please feel free to sign up. It's also free of charge for you. So lastly, I would just like to mention the EMBO mentorship platform that we have developed for our program members. So it's to find a mentor who can help you advance in your research, and in particular also in your development as a group leader. I think I don't want to say much more. We distinguish between mentors and advisors. Mentor being a more long-term relationship versus advisor, you know, where you would just want to talk about certain topics, have a particular question that you want to discuss. What we have on the platform is a instruction on what is expected from you as a mentor or from you as a mentee, and how you should structure your relationship and discussions with your mentor. And here again, we distinguish between a one-on-one mentor-mentee relationship and also peer mentoring. So just to say, for the Indian global investigators and young investigators, we have created a platform that allows them also to carry out peer mentoring if they want to. So now I'd like to stop and hand over to Budhaditya Mukherjee, who has been selected in 2025 and has just started as a global investigator, and he can tell you a bit about his motivations. So let me stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Gerlind, and thank you, IndiaBioscience, for allowing me or this platform to share my experience. I don't have a slide presentation for you, but I have jotted down a few points which I feel you might be interested if you are thinking of applying. So I started my lab in 2019 in the School of Medical Science and Technology, IIT Kharagpur. It's near Kolkata, like 138 kilometers away from Kolkata. So what comes to my mind when I decided to apply for this program? So I was a EMBO postdoctoral fellow, and this was a natural option. So I was aware of this program from the very start, I should say. I know that the first time I applied was EMBO Young Investigator. It was in 2023. That has a timeline of 4 years before I start my independent lab. From when I start my independent lab, and that time the application was not successful. The primary reason I believe at that point the application not being successful was that I didn't have a major paper. I have few short papers, so I qualify or make the cutoff, but these were not the major work that are coming out from my lab, from my PhD students. So I consider that that was a drawback, and I were aware of this. So when EMBO asked, so basically you can have the same application which can be carried over as a EMBO Global Investigator application also. I declined it because I wanted to come back with a fresh application in another year. So next time I applied in 2025, and what changed was at that point, two of my PhD students graduated in that between, and they have two major papers which got published. So I really felt that was some important tick mark, um, which was helping the application. Another point I think you might want to know is how I prepare the application. So the project or the research proposal have to be very concise. What I felt EMBO wanted to know is what is the main focus of my lab, and I'm capable of handling that research question. So the application is like 3 pages, and although your lab have multiple directions, you have to give a concise theme. I shared my application with my PhD supervisor, my postdoc supervisor, and also with one of my collaborators with whom I have a co-corresponding author in very recent time. And since they are from different fields, my PhD supervisor is more from my immunobiology, my postdoc supervisor was a cell biologist, molecular biologist, and my collaborator was a biophysicist. I got 3 perspectives, and that really helped to improve my application, really make the research proposal concise, understandable to a broader audience, and also make it scientifically very apt. I also share my application with my lab members. I wanted to have their views because this is the project I am putting, which they will be working on. So I felt that having their views will matter. And yes, that mattered. That helped me to modulate few things. Regarding the application, so once the application was shortlisted, it was the time for the presentation, and it is a time-bound presentation. So basically, you have 10 minutes to present your work before the committee, and then there is 10 minutes for additional questions. So I prepared the presentation. I took help of my lab members, and I really practiced it. So initially, it was a broader presentation, like the time will never match. But then you cut down, trim down on things, make it more focused, precise. And eventually, in the final presentation, it ended in 9 minutes, 45 seconds for me. So 15 seconds was saved. But yeah, so there was a lot of effort put into the presentation to make it understandable and make it communicate what I want to do, how I plan to do it, and whether I have the required technical abilities to answer these important questions or not. So that is some time you need to present, put some effort to prepare your presentation. One more thing was the application have few aspects. For example, my lab focuses on how drug pressure might push evolutionary adaptations in Leishmania, which is an intracellular parasites. So in the context of this, there was also an aspect of project which deals with how the genome have evolved evolutionarily. And you have to be very clear whom you want to collaborate with, because committee doesn't only ask me scientific questions, but also ask very specific questions like whom I plan to collaborate with, since this is out of my expert zone or my comfort zone, whether I have think about it or not, that how I plan to collaborate this, how I plan to build this project. So those type of questions also came from the committee, and I have luckily taken advice from Krish from Azad Pune also, because he got selected 1 year before me. And so this is the advice came from him well ahead. And I was prepared that this kind of questions might come, not only about the research, but also about how I envision to carry it out. Yeah, that's it. And so the presentation went well. Committee asked you this kind of questions. And then whether your application is also judged from the point of view fact that whether you have sufficient independent funding, because GIN is not going to basically fund your consumable. It is more of a networking aspect. And that is what is interesting for me, because some questions of my research required instruments like CLAIM or HIGH in proteomics facility, which I don't have. So the motivation was to, if I can get through this, I can use EMBO core facilities or collaborate with other European members or other collaborators, give me the platform so that we can collaborate and answer this question, which I technically doesn't have the instruments or the facilities right now to run through them. Yeah, so that is, I think I covered the points like how I prepare my application, why I want to apply for it, and few basic tips about how to prepare your application in the interview. If there are any more questions, I will be happy to take.
Thank you so much, Budhaditya, and thank you, Gerlind, for sharing the overview. We already have a lot of questions coming in. Gerlind already answered to Achira. Achira, please take it in the inbox, like whether or like letter of recommendation is needed from a head or colleague. So it's letter of recommendation. It's not necessary from the head, but from former supervisors. I think one question is for you, Budhaditya. Any specifications on the
Mamta, sorry to interrupt. Your volume is very low, actually. That's what also some of the attendees are also saying.
Okay, sorry, Budhaditya. I think there's a
Yes.
question for you.
Yeah.
Any specifications on the nature of a lab or application and submission?
Nature of the lab. No, there are EMBO few
Yeah.
core areas which are particularly mentioned, but these basically cover every aspects of biology. So you need to choose your field. For me, it is microbiology. I choose microbiology and virology because I work on post-pathogen interaction a lot and genomic adaptations and those kind of things. But there are many options, and I think it covers practically the entire perspective of biological field. So there should not be any problem. What they really want to say is whether you have specific questions that you are trying to answer through your independent lab, and whether these questions is basic in terms of basic science, and whether you have sufficient technical expertise and knowledge to answer this question. So that is what they're looking for. Maybe Charlie can correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt that this is what EMBO is looking for.
Yes,
Gerlind, do
that's
you want to add? Yeah.
that is correct. That you have what the EMBO committee is looking for is that you have. I mean, because you're just a starting group leader, you are going to compete against everybody out there, right? So what they are looking a certain niche, a certain expertise that that sets you, that gives you a unique angle, that sets you apart to a certain extent. And so this is what obviously Budhaditya was able to convince them of, that he had a specific expertise that would allow him to compete and to be, a successful group leader in this. Right, and they want to see. So what they what they need to see is that you have already your specific expertise, but also that you have some data that actually justifies your plans, right? Basically, like when you apply for a grant, there's also a little bit of initial data that you need to show that shows and from which then you can build on your project. So yeah. And was there another question with regard to letters of reference?
Yes,
So,
yes.
so the committee would like to see letters of reference from your former supervisors. You will see that from your former supervisors, because these are the people who know you best. And then, of course, you can. I mean, if you had only two, PhD and postdoc or whatever, or you don't want a particular person, then of course you can choose someone who you think knows you well, right, and can judge this. It does not have to be the head of your institute or anything, right?
Gerlind, Monica has also another question for you. She is now actually mentoring MSc Biotechnology research projects. and whether a letter of recommendation is needed for should be a mix of national or international referee, and is she eligible for applying in YIP, Young Investigator Program?
So she writes, what I'm seeing is I'm guiding a MSc Biotechnology Research Project. I have one small funded project. That seems very small. So maybe she should wait a couple of years until Monica should wait a couple of years until she has something more to show, because the competition will be very strong, I would say. Then with regard to project fundamental or applied, it is mostly fundamental that we are looking for. So there must be. So the committee is usually looking for, a molecular mechanism, a basic fundamental question that you're answering, and you have, with whatever phenomenon you are showing, there has to be some sort of scientific explanation behind it.
Right. So Prakash has a question. The last author of application, should it be an original article or a review article will work? So that's what, and
A, a
from
review
an
article.
independent lab.
Yeah, so a review article doesn't count. So we want a research article. Yeah, from work carried out in your lab. At that stage, it doesn't have to be necessarily totally. So there may be, some things that you have started earlier in your postdoc and then finish the whole project in your lab with your people. So this is also acceptable. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Ajay has a question. Can we ask Ajay to like unmute yourself and speak?
Ajay, if you can hear us, you can unmute and ask your question.
It's okay,
I
we
think
can go.
yeah, go to,
Sorry, I don't have any question like that.
okay, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Abhinandan has a question. Does funding differ when it's a dry lab and wet lab?
No, I think, right? No, I mean, it can be a basic question on you are a computational biologist, so the funding should not differ. It's more of a networking funding, so I think it remains essentially the same. Doesn't depend what your lab works on.
Another question. Should the application focus on only one question or like two questions from the lab? Is it okay to present both of them?
Yes, absolutely. So what the committee wants to see is your research portfolio. So they're not looking to fund a particular project. They are looking to fund you as a scientist, right? They're looking at what are your ideas? What are your projects? And of course, you're not only going to work on one particular project, I would hope, but you have different aspects that you want to look at in the project, in your question. And this is what the committee actually wants to hear. On the other hand, we've also had people who have been working on so many different things that it seemed quite difficult to handle this in one particular lab. And that's also where the committee would then be maybe doubtful. But for sure, don't only concentrate on one thing. Tell the committee what are the different questions that you're trying to answer in your lab and how they go together.
If I may,
Okay.
sorry, if I may just add what Gerlind said. Yeah, it's important to have many aspects, but it's good to have a common theme. For example, if you want to see genetic adaptations, there might be different model, but there must be a connective theme which connect these different questions. That will be really useful. Of course, if it is too wayward, too many things, it might be a problem. But if it is coming under one consolidated theme, that definitely help in application.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Budhaditya, I think it's for you. What were the main aspects he covered while presenting?
Okay, so your application you have already put forward. So the committee have come prepared looking at your application. So just don't repeat what you have put in the proposal. Rather, when I presented like what I have done. It was more chance to showcase the preliminary data that I have to answer this question and how I plan to take them forward. Like what I will planning to do next, whom with I'm planning to collaborate to answer these questions, and why is the question important to answer. So rather than just replicating the application entirely, you can just put in what preliminary data you have. Because in the case of the putting up the research proposal, the space is very limited and you might not be able to do so. So this is the chance to show that you have already have the basic proof of concept ready, and now you can take them forward.
Right. Thank you so much, Buddha. And I think Monica is not there anymore, like not in the participant anymore. So she wanted to clarify whether it's a question to Gerlind, whether she has a doctorate of like over 6 years of research experience. So does still she have to wait? So it's about the research group she is mentoring.
I mean, I think, Monica, because I cannot judge this from afar. So maybe if you look at the list of global investigators in India and compare yourself, I mean, you would have to look at the new guys. Of course, the people who have been in the program for a couple of years have advanced since then. But if you look at the new people, maybe you get a better feel of where you fit in that landscape. You know, look at Budhaditya, CV, etc. You know, you can find all of them listed on our website, and so you can basically then check how you, because I cannot judge this now from the little information that you give me. So, you know, that may then actually help you to see whether you would like to apply this year or in the next years. I would also like, so I've just recently done some statistics on global investigators, young investigators, etc. So on average, global investigators has about, you know, 4 or 5 years of their labs when they are successful with their applications. Of course, that's the average. That is not, you know, they're extremes, but you know, it is already fairly advanced in order to be competitive with, you know, everybody who is applying. That's sort of what we are looking at. So I would not recommend to necessarily apply in the first or second year.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You have to have, I mean, if in the 5 years, particularly if I talk about from Indian perspective, you need at least 5 years to get some good papers out of your lab. Maybe your first PhD student get graduates, and those things really help. It shows that you can successfully mentor them. You have already established the lab, have research publication to show for your profile. I think it is better to wait. Since you have 6 years, it's better to wait.
Right. I think since we don't have questions in the chat box, we will take a couple of them from
We
the.
do have questions in the chat box as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll take a few of them. So mostly the current focus is looking at the publications part, Gerlind. So first question is coming in from Prakash, where he asked that the last author publication, should it be an original research article from work carried out totally in the independent lab, or will a review article will also count over the research article?
Shrestha,
Oh,
actually, this has been covered. So
yes.
review article won't, yeah. So review
Yeah.
article
The
won't
next
work.
one, I
And
think, would be Pranav's question then. Pranav's question was about the proposal that they are submitting. Does that need to have like corresponding paper from the same exact field, or it can be slightly different, given the previous trajectory of the person applying?
I'm not sure if I understand this. If you are, you know, of course, the committee appreciates change in field, so that is not a problem at all. On the contrary, it is positively viewed. But of course, if you are, so I would think that your paper would be related. So I don't quite understand. But as I say, you know, change of field is fine. So it does not necessarily, you know, if that is you've changed field while you're a group leader or before that is fine.
Okay, Pranav, I think I still see him in the meeting. If they still want to ask some more clarifying questions quickly, can you want to do so, or we can continue to the next questions, Pranav?
I think on the same line, someone has asked, like, there's two corresponding author, and he or she is not the corresponding author, not the last author. So does that still count?
I mean,
Um,
please,
Budhaditya.
yeah. Okay. So I was so what he suggests or she suggested, is it co-corresponding? Okay, yeah, I
Yes,
think it
co-corresponding.
counts. It counts as a corresponding author. It makes the cutoff, right?
We would like to see the last author. So what we understand with last author, I mean, you can always explain things to us. So, if you list your publication, there's a space beneath it where you can explain what your role in that particular
Contribution.
paper was, so that it's clear to the committee what your role was. What we expect as the last, when we define last author, we expect that you were the person who got the funding for this and who had the idea for this and who's supervising his students. So this is what we expect, right? So of course there could be collaborator students or that's fine, but please explain this to us. We have to see that you were the lead in this particular paper,
Project.
to accept that as one of your qualifying papers. Whatever, if you have one of those anyway, that's fine. And then but please let us know what your role was in this particular in the papers. It's always good for the committee because they always have this question about scientific independence, right? So is it are you able to carry out your own ideas without your former supervisors? Of course, collaborators have expertise. That's very clear that you don't have. That's why you collaborate. But are things driven, at least your part, driven by you? And this is what the committee needs to see, and this is what you need to convince the committee about.
Yeah, there is specific space in the form where you need to put this. So we could
Yeah.
answer that clearly.
There's another question coming in from Anusha. If we had an independent postdoc and our last and corresponding author on a paper that has largely been analyzed by current lab members, would that count?
Yes.
One of the attendings also asked whether having PhD
Sorry,
students.
Momita, you're not audible.
Hello, I think I'm audible now.
Still very low.
Okay, I think there's
Yeah.
a question that having PhD students and mentioning them is a bonus or not.
Say again.
Having PhD students and mentioning them, like having PhD students and mentioning them is a bonus or not. So someone has asked that.
Mentioning them. I mean, you are asked basically also to say who's in your lab, right? So part of the
Right, I
application is
think
that you list your lab members. So clearly, and when we are asking for your publication list, we also ask you, you have the chance to write things about the publication, your role, etc. And what we want you to do is actually put the members of your lab in italics. So again, that is very obvious who are your lab members and who are your collaborators, whoever that may be. So yes, we will know, and the committee wants to know about your PhD students, for sure.
Okay.
So I think Rashmi has asked on the chat that is there any age limit for the GIN and the YIP, upper age limit particularly?
No. So no, the limit is the years of independence. And for women with children or parents who have taken for women with children, you get 1 year off, 1 year extra per child. So with 2 children, you have 8 years of independence for the GIN, right? And for men or partners who haven't had a child, we give the time that has been taken off as extension of the eligibility criteria.
Okay. I think a similar question was there in terms of eligibility and timing in our registration, that are career breaks or pandemic related delays considered in the 6 years period of setting up an independent lab?
Yeah, pandemic related, is not, so we have discussed this with our different committees, and since everybody was hit by the pandemic, so everybody's in the same boat, we cannot give special leave to some and not to others. So this is why pandemic doesn't count. But of course, if you had exacerbating circumstances, you have taken care of, a sick relative, or you were sick yourself, etc. Yes, of course, we do take that into account. Send us a message, and we will then discuss your specific case. So yes, that is taken into account.
Another question, I think this question comes a lot, like if a person is a Debate Ramalinga Swami fellow, is he or she also applicable for YIP and GIN?
Yes, so what I understand, that's basically the question of the independent postdoc here, right? So that's a Ramalinga Swami fellow. So yes, that does count.
Someone is actually, I am yet to set up my lab as a new recruit. Will I be eligible? So that's what one asked.
On what? On you? Sorry?
Like she or he has set up the lab, and they are a new recruit. So are they eligible?
Yeah, if it
Well,
is an
yes, please, Buddha.
if it is an independent position, I mean, but you still have 6 years. So when he said, or he,
Right.
what he meant by new recruit, just starting the lab?
Might be just starting the lab. Yes.
So that no, they will not be eligible. They have to have their
So
independent lab
first,
at least for a year.
yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
I think
And one of
the situation could have been that they've just been recruited by the university or the organization, and their lab is yet to set up with the grants coming in still and the lab being functional. So then, does the starting of the position itself make them eligible to apply? Is probably the question coming in.
yeah. So
Um,
Gerlind actually answered like 1 year. They have to set up a lab for a year and then.
yeah.
Yes. So I hope they would listen to us at least from the live stream if they are not part of the participants here.
No, I think these are all questions, like queries,
Have been mostly
like
covered.
yeah, which will be helpful for everyone. So someone has asked, like they are in a private deemed university in India. Are they eligible to apply for this?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes, they are. And also there was something about private institutes. There's also a yes. So as long as you're able to ask for grants, publish freely, you are eligible.
Another actually very interesting question. Is there any influence of the previous institution where the fellow was working to get selected as EMBO postdoc position?
Postdoc we are not discussing, right? I mean, I
Yes,
can answer
right.
postdoc questions. So
Someone,
where the fellows working to get selected for, are they really asking about a postdoc? So
yes,
there's a
they are.
PhD student asking about a postdoc. Not really. I think it is much more important where you're going. So what the committee will look at is certainly where you have been accepted to go for as a postdoc. So that's going to be important, not really where you come from. Of course, it's never wrong to come from a super high whatever institution, but that's not for everybody. But if you are able to, get a position at a very good institution for your postdoc, that's of course great.
Right. So someone is a professional at the research grants management team, and they are interested in understanding the evaluation criteria.
Yeah, I think Budhaditya summarized this very nicely. So just to add, do you have, you present a research portfolio, not only a particular project, you have a niche in a certain area, so you have qualifications that show that you have an expertise that not everybody has, that is special and in particular to you. You have published the independent paper as a last author. You have sufficient grants and a group that basically goes with your ambitions. So your project should fit your group size. Very important, right? I mean, so you can't have a huge project with 3 people. That is probably not going to work. So it should be adapted to that. But of course, it also doesn't matter if it's just 3 people, right? If it is a super good project, why not, right? So
Right.
it really, and I would also recommend the grant management team to look at former or current awardees so that they sort of get a bearing of what it is that the committee is looking at or looking for, sorry.
Just one
Would it
last question from the registration form. So, can a non-biology researcher apply for GIP and GIN?
If they work on a biological question, yes. So we do have chemists and physicists, computational biologists as program members. So yes, if you are working on a biological question, or medics, right? So if you're working on a biological question, yes, you can apply.
I
Okay.
think Srishta, you have something.
Yes, two questions coming in from the chat box. One, Natalie is asking, does the date of the child's birth matter? If the children are born before the start of lab, does that not extend the eligibility?
So children don't matter when they came, so they always will be counted.
Great. And the next question is coming from Balakumar and Chandrasekhar, that receiving their first independent grant got delayed due to the pandemic. Will this case be considered as eligibility for YIP?
Okay, I think the question probably is, am I now too late because my I started at year X and my grant only started a year later due to pandemic. So please let us know that, and we will be able to sort of extend your criteria, your eligibility for that. So, but you need to, would like to ask you to please contact the office so that we can actually note this and then treat your application accordingly when it comes in.
Sure. I think for now, yes, there is another question coming in.
But
Also,
there is
yes,
one question in the question and
Q&A
answer.
also.
So
Yes.
yeah, someone has asked that they have currently 4 lab members. Actually, this has been answered by Gerlind. So she mentioned whether it's 3 or 4. If it's a project and it's very good, so it doesn't really matter whether you have 4 current members or 3 current members. It's not low for gene application.
Yeah.
Same, I think, also goes for the question similarly on the chat. Just a while ago, Gerlin did answer that even if you're not from the biology field but interdisciplinary, so that could be answered. So I think by the time the question was being typed, it just got answered, maybe.
Yeah.
So for the while,
So
I think we don't see any other questions, but the attendees who are still online and directly want to ask their question instead of typing, please raise your hand and we can unmute you quickly and you can ask directly.
Mukulika, the answer is yes. If you have a biological question, then you can apply for that.
Um, we'll give a few more minutes to think that if there are no more questions, then otherwise we'll close the session. So anyone, a quick call again for the attendees who are still online. If they want to quickly ask their question, now is a very good time that you can ask them directly by raising your hand and not typing in the chat box also. Yes, Balakumaran, I'll just unmute you. Please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes. Just I'm very curious to, to apply for YIB or the Global Investigator offered by EMBO. So I have two questions actually. So my situation is that I have previously worked with another institute. I have moved to IIT Jodhpur recently. So right now I'm still supervising my PhD students. So since one of the criteria is like how big is the group. So right now I'm, as a senior assistant professor who is managing my research team from my previous institute and building my team here in the new institute over here. So at this situation, so will this be considered that, okay, I have still supervised PhD students, or will this be taken into a negative sense that I don't have any PhD students or no group is still formed?
No, I mean, I assume that's maybe normal if you move from one institute to the next, that you still have your old students and and you maybe some follow you and then you have to recruit new staff. I don't think that will be taken as a negative. I mean,
Okay.
Yes,
Because
I mean,
the recruitment process for the new staff are going, because I got my new grants here. So the new grants have been started, and then like the funding release, and then hiring process takes a little bit time. But I
yes.
can justify by showing that okay, what are the grants I have got so far. But building the team might take a little bit time. But maybe before the interview date, I would have the team built here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
yeah. I mean, and as of course, as your date of independence counts the previous institution, right? So,
institution. So
genau, yeah. So, yes, I mean, you're definitely eligible to apply. You may want to wait a year, but I mean, sounds pretty good what you say so far. So,
okay. Okay.
yeah,
And the second question I have is regarding the selection criteria. So I have briefly summarized about the different aspects of selection criteria that includes publication and also sufficient grants and so on. Would
yeah.
impact factor of publication or number of publications given an weightage, or is it like only the last author in a reputed journal is taken, or what kind of measures is being taken, because institute wise it varies basically. So yes, I was just curious to
So I mean, we are signatories of DORA, which is
know that.
so which means that our committees are not looking at impact factors, and we would. So if someone sends us an application with impact factors and stuff behind each of their publications, we're going to send it back because we want that removed. So the committee is they're not impressed by sheer numbers of papers, to answer just one of that questions. So that's not what is impressive. What is impressive is the primary interviewer who will be talking to you, well, they will have read your papers, right? So they will know. I mean, whether there is one of the CNS journals there or another one really doesn't matter. They will have read your paper and they will have seen what kind of contributions you have made to the scientific literature. So, right. So, as you know, just to confirm again, we are not looking at impact factors, and or the committee is not looking at impact factors, but is really looking at what you have been able, what your scientific advances have been. They may also look, they certainly look at your independent papers. As I said, they would read those. They may be interested in some of the stuff that you've done before. Of course, having done a good postdoc is never wrong, right? Because it really proves already, your trajectory. So, but that is, the committee, I think, has a good way how to look at this. They were not going to just be bean counting.
Okay, just one quick question only. Sorry, can I go ahead? Just along with the publication line, with respect to the submissions, for example, there may be manuscripts which are in submission, or maybe that manuscripts which are posted in bioarchive, or it can be archived. So maybe it gets accepted once during the interview date, or during the course of application. So are we allowed to update the status of publication, or just mention
Yes.
that these are the papers which are in communication or in preparation?
Yes.
What would
So we
be?
do encourage you to let us know also already upon application about the manuscript in submission. We don't want to know about manuscript in preparation. That's a bit too detailed, but your manuscript in submission. Of course, bioarchive, they will look at bioarchive papers for sure. And then there, I told you about review commons with the peer review. Even if it hasn't been established, even if it hasn't been accepted by a journal yet, so that would already qualify you. So by 100%, it's a peer-reviewed paper. That would qualify you. And as I say, the committee will look at this. But of course, by the time of application, you either have to have your peer-reviewed review commons paper or an accepted paper.
Paper.
And of course, you must actually update them during if you give a interview, you must update them. They want to know.
Sure. Okay.
They
Yeah.
need to
Thank you so
know
much.
to be impressed.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Navin has two questions. We have a lot of questions coming in right now. So whether the proposal should be individual centric or collaboration, international or national, can be considered. And the second question is there any limit of the funding for proposal?
Basically, the committee wants to see that the money that you have, the funds you've been able to raise, are sufficient to carry out your projects, right? And that you also have access to the machinery that you need. So, either by collaboration, of course, that can, as Budhaditya was saying, he doesn't have direct access to Clem, but he has collaborations and is looking for collaborations to get that kind of access. Yeah. Sorry, does that answer the question?
Yeah,
I
I think
think
that, yeah, but
Sorry.
and the specifically for the research proposal part, so remember the committee is evaluating you. So of course there will be questions in collaborator, but the proposal should be centered around your lab, your focus area of research.
right. So along the line, there's a question: the collaboration with someone in European lab, and maybe one of the important factors, like, is it required that the collaboration be already initiated prior to the application?
It doesn't really matter. It is, of course, nice. It really doesn't matter. What would you say, Budhaditya?
Yeah. I mean, any sort of complementary collaborative research is always nice to have if you have already initiated it. Doesn't matter like whether it is from European or national level.
Yeah.
So another question is there any restriction on number of application? If we apply this year, can we still apply next year? It's yes to the second question, but for the first one, Gerlind will answer.
Yes, so the committee will only interview you twice. So if they have interviewed you once and they said no, they may interview the second time, but that's then it. If you don't get it, then that's it. We're not going to, even if you're still eligible, we're not going to invite you again for interview. In terms of written application, there is no limit. So
Right.
you
So another
can.
question. Okay, so like in terms of written application, there can be multiple times if
Yeah.
they are not being interviewed twice.
Yes.
Okay. And someone asked, can you elaborate on the lab support? How long should it be? How long it should be? They have a current grant for 3 years. Does that work? And they also have one grant application in review.
Yeah, no, that is all fine. So the committee in particular, if they interview you and find you good, they just expect that you will be able to get further grants. So it really is fine.
Thank you. I think we are done with all the question and answer till now.
I
But if
I have
anyone
one
has,
question, yes, if that's possible to ask. Budhaditya, if we look at the Indian applicant particularly, do you think there is some sort of difference or maybe a strategy may not be applicable in Indian grant applications, but would actually be an opener or not be a deterrent when we consider EMBO related fellowship applications or programs like these? So, any cultural switch or anything that you would want the applicants to be mindful of?
Yes,
Yeah.
please stick. Okay, Budhaditya, you get to say that in a second. Just from my point of view,
Yeah,
please
please.
stick to the guidelines in terms of format, etc. So we get people copy pasting stuff in,
Yeah.
and no, please don't, because the committee is used to looking at things. They have to, literally scan quickly. They know which page to look at for this information, etc. Don't make their lives difficult, because if you do that, that doesn't work for your advantage. So,
And from the technical point of view, if I'm honest, for the Indian funding agency, not always, but most of the time they would expect a translational approach, something of a translational component to be in your project. It's not always necessary, but it advantages. But EMBO really don't consider that. Your project might be a very basic science. So very basic research question, which I would not put into my Indian funding agency as a proposal. I would definitely put it in EMBO.
that's good advice. Yes, absolutely.
and I think this was a very good question. Thank you for the question, Krishna.
That really made me very curious, because when we consider the different kind of application scenarios as a young investigator, I think those are very different ball games altogether, right? So I was really curious to know that if it actually translates in the practical application scenario also, since you're a very recent inductee into the network.
I would also recommend that you contact one of the current, former,
Yes,
whatever,
yes.
global investigators, young investigators, for some advice, because indeed, as far as I understand, the applications that are requested from us are quite different than from the local applications. And so I think, also what Budhaditya was saying about, practicing for the interview, etc., absolutely the right thing to do. Talk to peers, have yourself criticized, etc. It really is key to the whole thing. And talk to people who've gone through this. They will be able to give you good advice.
So, Gerlind, just a follow up on that. Do you see any patterns? Because you shared some of the analytics in terms of the applicants and the offers that were given out, right? So, do you see any patterns which have emerged for countries like in India, Japan, or Singapore and Taiwan currently compared to the other applicants across the world?
Trying to think. No, not really. I mean, specific research areas are more popular in one country versus the other. But I mean, that is uninteresting in the sense of what you should be, what for your application it is not really interesting. Do I see, but no, as I said, from India, I often see applications that are not following the format, and so that doesn't serve you well. But otherwise, nothing, that I would, if I think of I can't think of something right now where I would say in specific Indian applicants should watch out for this or that. Not really.
Okay, sure. We still do have quite a few of our Japanese attendees also still online, and I did nudge them if they have questions. But if there is any tip that you would want to offer them if for any specific application regarding.
That actually, please also contact us. And we also have quite detailed advice on preparing for the interview. And in particular, I think, like for any applicant, as Budhaditya has described, practice for the interview. This has been a lot of times that is where once you are selected for an interview, actually you have a 50-50 chance to be selected. But this is where you either are successful or fail. If you haven't prepared well, if you don't know, like Budhaditya was saying that the committee asked on how do you wants to know what is your preliminary data, how do you want to move forward, what are your concrete plans, do you have you don't have expertise in this, do you have a collaborator in this, these things you need to be prepared for and think about. And the key often is practice, practice, practice. Get somebody who critically reviews and listens to your talk.
I think.
Momita, again, you're
Okay,
not on.
okay. Oh, I'm not audible. Am I audible now? Yeah,
Yes.
it's okay. Oh, actually,
Sure.
actually, there's a last question. I think with that we will end. Do you have some applicant for both YIP and Gene? Do you then let them go forward with both?
Yes. So, but if you are selected as a most of the time the YIP interviews before the GIN interview. So if you're selected as a YIP, you're not going to be interviewed for the GIN, because basically you're joining the same network. But what you can actually do is you can apply for the GIN and then apply the next year for the YIP. So we've had that if you still meet the eligibility criteria. So that works. But in the same year, you're not going to be selected for the same thing. For both,
Both. Right. Thank you so much. I think now it's the end of this webinar. I would really like to sincerely thank both of our speakers, Gerlin and Budhaditya, and for sharing their time, insights, and experience with us. I would also like to thank all of the participants for joining us today, and also the participants joined us from Japan for your thoughtful question as well as for making this an interactive session. We really appreciate your time. We hope to see you in future webinars and events. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Goodbye.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Momita, just one
go
thing.
ahead.
Gerlind, I
Good.
just have a quick question since I got you here, so just taking the chance. So if I have a manuscript in bioarchive, can I still put it in review comments?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Looking forward to seeing that, hopefully going through that.
Yes.
For sure. And actually, review comments does require, at least after you've put it through peer review, that you actually also put your manuscript on bioarchive.
Okay.
So it's very clear.
Okay.
Actually, I think there's another question. We can take it up. Would you advise to apply immediately when you have first last author publication or wait until the CV is best?
Yeah. I mean, from the statistics that I've just looked at, which surprised me, it was, well, not really surprised me, but it was more, the committee was leaning more towards the senior people because obviously they are more strong when they apply. This doesn't mean that we don't have people who are actually selected very early on. So it's a bandwidth, but apparently, the average at least tells me that, the later you apply, the more success you have. But as we say, you can apply several times, not a problem.
That was
Sorry.
in the nick of time, really, Sandhya, for the question.
Yeah. I think we don't have any more questions. If we have, we can just wait a minute maybe, and then we can end the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Budhaditya.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
IndiaBioscience.
much. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah. Hopefully see you soon.